Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Remy, for the introduction. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this year's Resourcing Tomorrow. Absolutely grateful to represent the Yukon on this international stage to talk about mining in our territory, and I thank you all for the important work you do. We try as much as we can to tell our Yukon story, and so I'll start a little bit with just to give you a bit of context about our region and a bit of a high-level overview. So the Yukon is truly a special place. It's a vast territory covering about 482,000 square kilometers. It's situated east of Alaska and between British Columbia and the Arctic Ocean. We represent just under 5% of Canada's total landmass. So comparatively speaking, we're close in size to Germany and Austria combined. So despite our northern location, Yukon is well connected with daily jet service to Canadian cities and seamless interline connections to major international markets. In the summertime, we have a direct as well from Whitehorse, Yukon to Frankfurt, Germany. We continue to be the only northern territory in Canada with a centralized, connected network of maintained highways, which links us to Alaska, Northwest Territories, British Columbia, and Alberta, as well as seaports in Skagway and Haines, Alaska, and Stewart, British Columbia. Our year-round highway system is about 5,000 kilometers of all-weather roads, including the Alaska Highway, which extends from British Columbia through the Yukon and across our international border, and the Dempster Highway, which is Canada's only road to the Arctic. You can drive from Whitehorse to Miami if you want. The Yukon's population has been steadily increasing every year, and a 23% increase in our population since 2013. Really, as a sub-regional government, we've led percentage of population growth throughout the G7 over the last 6 years. We're currently home to approximately 45,000 people, so there's probably 2 blocks down the street here that have the same population. So you can imagine, small population, but just an absolutely incredible landmass. The Yukon's robust local economy and growing mine sector have been key contributors to recent population gains, along with opportunities for an absolutely exceptional lifestyle. In addition to our economic mainstays of mining and tourism, we also have an investment ecosystem that supports economic growth, diversification in our entrepreneurial tech sector, and a flourishing media and creative industries. Along with economic growth of 10% in 2020, so you can remember what was happening at that point, we're pretty proud of that, and 8.4% growth in 2021, and a further 5.8% in 2022, we have among the lowest national unemployment rates. We've had pretty much the lowest unemployment in Canada for the last half a decade. And again, welcoming economic immigrants from across Canada and around the world. On top of that, the Yukon has a skilled labor force and the highest proportion of degree holders per capita in Canada. In 2020, we also became the first Northern Canadian jurisdiction to be home to a university, which is Yukon University. The Yukon has 14 unique First Nations governments, and they are all integral part of our culture, governance, and development. Reconciliation and strengthening government-to-government relations with Yukon First Nation governments is a cornerstone commitment of our territorial government. Along with the Yukon First Nation governments, First Nation development corporations, and our industry partners, the Yukon government has worked to make the Yukon investment ready and well prepared to address new challenges and opportunities by investing in our people, infrastructure, and environment. So I'll delve into a little bit about the segment I think we're all here for, which is mining. From the early days of the Klondike Gold Rush, the Yukon's mining industry has played a crucial part in providing investment and employment opportunities, while also developing our economic potential in the north. Between 1896 and 1899, as many of you will recall from history books, over 100,000 prospectors migrated to the Klondike region in search of gold. The discovery of gold and bonanza set off a frenzy that would capture people's imaginations from all walks of life, from all over the world. News of the discovery spread like wildfire, and within a year, the Yukon was swarmed by tens of thousands of eager prospectors. But gold mining in the Yukon today still remains a central part of the economic landscape. But the Yukon's expansive geology continues to reveal a diverse range of significant deposits, both gold, but as well as critical minerals. So with large areas of still underexplored areas, the Yukon is home to over 3,000 identified mineral occurrences, including 25 of the 31 minerals defined as critical by the Government of Canada. So some of these commodities include copper, cobalt, tungsten, platinum, palladium, zinc, nickel, all of which the Yukon hosts a significant supply. I just went through some notes this morning. When you look at some of the bigger deposits we have, copper, we have 19 identified deposits equaling about just over 15 billion pounds of copper and about 1,000 documented occurrences. Zinc, 25 deposits, 60 billion pounds of defined zinc. And when we look at tungsten, we have two of the world's largest deposits. One group that was here with us yesterday, Fireweed Metals, have about 844.7 million pounds of tungsten in their project that they're working on right now. So we recognize that mining plays a central role in the transition to a green economy, and critical minerals are vital to lower carbon technologies, and our significant deposits are integral to Canada's successful implementation of its critical minerals strategy. With demand for critical minerals on the rise, the importance of establishing a robust interjurisdictional collaboration to ensure the security of supply chains is essential. So as I mentioned earlier, Yukon First Nation governments play a significant role in the governance and development of our territory. So coordination between the Yukon government, Indigenous governments, rights holders, stakeholders, communities, and development corporations has advanced many infrastructure initiatives that allow for new opportunities in exploration and mine development and supporting a shared economic stability. So to support this, we are working directly with First Nations partners to develop new mineral legislation. Our environmental assessment process is actually just a one-stop shop. We have representation from our First Nation governments, our territorial government, and the federal government. But now when we look at our direct mining legislation, we're building that hand in hand. The policy architecture is done at a table sitting with our First Nation governments. And this is crucial that mining projects establish comprehensive engagement as well with impacted First Nations. So something I always tell any company that's coming to the Yukon is spend as much time sitting and building trust with your First Nations partners as you do with your banker. That's what gets projects done. So mineral exploration has long been a key component in the Yukon's economic success, and the skilled services that our First Nations businesses continue to contribute is a very significant impact in the sector. Mining initiatives hold the promise of delivering enduring economic advantages for our First Nation governments and communities, employment opportunities, royalties, and infrastructure development. We're also looking at clean energy partnerships with First Nation governments. So we've built a very significant portfolio of renewable energy projects across the Yukon, and predominantly they're owned and built by First Nation governments, and we de-risk and we put funds in to offset CapEx. On an average, 90% of our Yukon energy needs are met by the use of hydroelectric power, and 93% by renewable sources. When we look at our demand out over the next 10 years, it's very significant. So right now we're working on early stage project of connecting the Yukon's grid to the North American grid. It's islanded grid. So we're in the midst right now doing some of the early work in partnership with the Government of British Columbia. In light of this, long-term energy requirements, again, will be a key focus for our infrastructure investment. The Yukon is globally recognized mining jurisdiction with strong environmental and social and governance standards. Our regulatory transparency, along with the development of new infrastructure, is a key part of what makes the Yukon a prime investment jurisdiction. So over the past 2 years, Yukon has seen about $250 million in equity financing, with a portion of these investments coming. So some of the bigger companies that we see now is we have Teck investing in Yukon, but also B2 Gold, Hecla, Rio Tinto, Mitsubishi, who have either taken up positions via strategic investments or M&A within the territory. And I think there was an announcement yesterday where Rio Tinto just has increased their position to just under 10% in a very significant copper project with Western Copper. This year to date, we've kept almost at pace with British Columbia when we look at financing for the calendar year, and have outperformed some of our neighbors like Alaska. So this year, we're also continuing to work to stimulate new discoveries. So we offset the costs of early exploration, and we have something called the Yukon Mineral Exploration Program. So we have about 45 to 50 projects being funded. So we do a 50-50 split on that early stage exploration. Our government as well regularly attends conferences globally. We support the companies that are working in our jurisdiction by either talking about the good work they're doing or as well sharing the commitment that we have to the industry. We've spent time this year in meeting with major companies in Japan. There's a tremendous amount of interest as well from a number of different regions in Asia. And of course, we've had great meetings over the last number of days here. We're also actively dedicating resources to infrastructure, which is, again, fundamental factor in promoting sustainable mineral development. When compared to other northern jurisdictions, our infrastructure is notably developed. And again, helping to mitigate what is constantly recognized as a challenge for projects in the north. So, and the Yukon continues to deploy funds. So I'll just give you a quick rundown in closing here on our infrastructure development. We have about $500 million right now in public-private partnership that's being deployed across a series of projects when it comes to road building. We're also working in Alaska, and we're building a new marine services platform in the development of a port. We've just identified, just before I flew over this week, we put a supplementary budget together and deployed just over $21 million to a new port facility. We're just completing a fiber line, which will connect Canada's north. It'll give redundancy towards all coast to coast to coast. It's about $100 million. It's 770 kilometers. Very significant project. It covers 1,100 water crossings, and we drilled under the Mackenzie Delta in order to put this in place. We're spending about $250 million right now. We're halfway through a project to upgrade our international airport. We've got one bridge on the Alaska Highway, very significant for Arctic security, but also to get into the Yukon. We're spending about $160 million there as well. So as you can see, we're very committed to doing our part in this work. So with each passing year, we continue to prove ourselves to be responsible leaders in the national mining industry and a good place for investment. With a commitment to environmental stewardship, ongoing sustainable mining practices, a successful partnership with First Nation governments, the Yukon remains a leader in the global transition to be a more responsible future for mining. And Yukon's mining industry truly provides a wealth of opportunities. So again, thank you for spending some time with me this morning, and thank you for listening to the Yukon story.